Rise and grind gamers, my name is Tetsyumi, and welcome to a speed build of my Japanese temple-inspired Terraria base. This, of course, is in my Calamity Mod Let's Play world. However, if you're new, or just wanted to check out the build, I am using all vanilla blocks to build everything, apart from the magic storage modules in this first building. So, a little bit of backstory while I'm constructing the main hub of my base here. If you're not familiar with my current Terraria 1.4 Calamity Mod series, this exact temple/storage area thing was built by me in the beginning of my series when I was playing around with the idea of old Japanese-inspired builds. Whenever I build in Terraria, especially for a YouTube series, I try to really come out of my comfort zone in terms of building, try new techniques, different blocks, colors, styles, etc. And doing that really helps me improve. This is the whole reason I wanted to try building in this Japanese style, to get myself out of my comfort zone and try some new building techniques. But the reason I'm building it here again is because my original Calamity world was corrupted, and so I had to move to this new one. Honestly though, I won't say I'm happy about it, but it does at least give me the chance to expand my base a little and make it look, in my opinion, pretty great at the end of it. After I finished rebuilding the temple, I took a screenshot and brought that into MS Paint to try and visualize what I wanted the rest of the area to look like. I wanted to keep the temple as the centerpiece, and therefore make it a little bit more separated from the rest of the buildings in the area. I decided to do that by elevating it and adding some water features, with the other builds off to the side a bit and a little lower. As I'm terraforming the land, I really want to keep some color and vegetation, just so that it won't be boring to look at when it's under the water. I mixed in different colors of moss on stone blocks, along with grass and mud with their respective grass seeds. Eventually though, I also add in some walls and plants, but I do that after I finish building the two houses off to the side. These houses I did in a slightly different style than the temple. At this point I've had a bit more practice since I've designed the temple, so I wanted to change it up a bit. The main structure of these houses are these torii gate designs, which are those red structures you walk under, particularly at Shinto shrines, where there are two beams and the top one is longer than the lower one. Basically, I just stacked two of them on top of each other with a little bit of a middle section just to separate them. Then on the tops of the longer sections I put some Blue Dynasty shingles, again just to contrast the red colors of the temple. Then for the walls, I mainly used a combination of Pearlwood wall for the base layer, White Dynasty wall for the main background, and some bamboo and rich mahogany walls for support. It gets a little bit more complex for the last two houses on the left side of the build, but that's my main process. If you want a more in-depth guide of this building style, then let me know in the comments and I'll make one. For this second house, I wanted to make it a little bit more tall and narrow so I could eventually add a clock to the top of it and make it look sort of like a big clock tower. In my opinion, this did end up looking pretty good. However, as you will see, I had to essentially tear down the entire build twice to make the rooms bigger by one block so that they were valid NPC houses. Thankfully, this build is pretty small, so that wasn't a big deal. Other than that little mishap, the walls followed the same pattern as the other house, and the build came out nicely. After this, I backtracked to adding walls to the terraforming and also lots of different plants, mainly strange plants and mushrooms, which I painted to give some variety. Then, what I've been waiting for ever since starting this build, I finally added the water. This is in my opinion what really made this build come together and made it feel more alive. I originally wanted the theme of this build to be a Japanese hot spring village, which is why I tried to incorporate some running water and make the scenery more relaxing. It didn't end up being exactly that. The idea was more or less shut down after I eventually tried to add a fog machine to the water to make it look steamy, and it just didn't look how I wanted it to, but I still think the overall calm feeling is still there. It's not drawn on my little MS Paint blueprint, but I did also plan to add a bridge to the left side of the base to connect the temple to the rest of the world. Originally, I had planned it to just be a standard stone or wood bridge, and I was going to only build one on the one side of my base. But then I decided it would look way better, and also fit the theme more, if I tried my hand at building a rope bridge on both sides of my base. This was only my second time ever building a rope bridge, and in all honesty, I might have over-engineered it a little bit, but the main blocks I used were rich mahogany wood, fence, and walls, palm wood and living wood platforms, and some living wood walls, planked walls, and wooden beams for detail. I also added vine rope as the rope and painted most of the blocks brown. It has a little bit more going on than just a traditional Terraria rope bridge, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, so I copied the design over on the other side. Now at this point I thought I was done with the build, and I had went to work on a few more NPC houses in some other parts of the world, but then I realized I built 4 NPC houses for this build, the forest biome, so that the 4 NPCs that like the forest biome could move in and be happy. But I forgot that Calamity, and some of the other mods I have installed, also add in their own NPCs to the game. This is a long-winded way of me telling you I wanted to build more houses on the left side of my base to finally make the whole thing complete. And this is exactly what I did. I tried my hand at making a single-story building, just for one NPC, and see how that looked. I also did something a little bit different with the roof by adding a big pointed arch to it and not having the shingles go all the way up. It took a lot of playing around with for me to find a design that I liked, but I eventually found it and ended up doing a similar thing with the roof on the second house. I also tried something a little bit different in this house in terms of decoration. In the gap in between the actual room and the roof, I tried something completely new to me, which was to use boreal wood workbenches, as well as rich mahogany fence and wood beams, as decorational support for the roof. I also added in some Dynasty bookshelves to act as windows or sort of a tatami covering over the walls. I haven't done much experimenting with using any sort of furniture in my builds before, but I think this turned out great, and it makes me really want to play around with it more to improve my builds in the future. For the second house, again, I followed the same exact style as I did with the other houses, by making this one a little bit taller and less wide, and also using the same wall structure as I did in the previous house. I wanted to make the interior of this house in particular really cozy, so for the first floor, after the table and chairs, I added some books and a vase on a shelf. and for the second floor, I put a bed and a dynasty workbench to act as a small table. These two houses in particular, along with the scenery of them being right next to the rope bridge, are my favorite builds in this world so far, and my second favorite builds that I've ever built in Terraria, my first being the giant castle I built in my Journey's End playthrough. Shout out, go watch it. And with these two houses finished, the build is complete. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me build and looking at my process for building, and if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button because there are, at the very least, a few more speed build videos coming out on some of my other NPC houses in this world. And again, if you really like these builds, then please let me know in the comments if you want to see a more in-depth tutorial on this style of house. And with all that being said, thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Peace.